Welcome back. In the last video, I explained why it's important to set priority for voice communications and started getting those settings set up on the switch. In this episode of Cisco Tech Talk, I'll finish configuring advanced QoS settings on Catalyst 1200 and 1300 switches. Next. Now that the ACL is set, it's time to create class maps. They classify the traffic that meets your criteria. To create the class maps, navigate to Quality of Service, QoS Advanced Mode, and Class Mapping. Click the plus icon. You'll be making two, one for inbound traffic and one for outbound. For the inbound QoS map, enable the identification of traffic bound to the QoS ACL. Repeat the process for the outbound QoS map. Subsequently, you'll need to establish two new policies to apply to your class maps. Find the policy table under the Advanced QoS settings and create the new policies. The first will be for inbound traffic. The second is for outbound. After creating the policies, you will need to prepare the policy class maps. Assign a policy to each. Select the correct policy name and use the plus icon to create the first policy class map. Bind the inbound QoS policy to the inbound class map, setting the action type to Set Cost 5 for any matching traffic. The Class of Service 5 incoming traffic rule has been implemented to expedite this traffic for Layer 2 switches. You can also establish a policy rule with your class map to limit bandwidth or drop traffic if necessary. However, since I don't want to restrict bandwidth for voice traffic, I'll leave the policy type as None. Click Apply when you're ready to finalize. To create the next, select the appropriate QoS policy and proceed with the binding process. This time, for outbound traffic, set the action type to DSCP46 to ensure it receives the proper Layer 3 classification as it heads towards a firewall. Click Apply to confirm your settings. These are especially useful to those who use WebEx soft phones throughout the day. The last step in this process is to bind the policies to the upstream port connected to your router. This is done to achieve a comprehensive end-to-end QoS implementation. Start by navigating to Policy Binding under Policy Class Maps. Select the relevant upstream port. In this case, I'll say port 17 is connected to the router, and then click to edit port 17's settings. Enable both the input and output policies. For the input, select the inbound QoS policy previously configured. Set the default action to Permit Any to avoid blocking other types of traffic. Similarly, for the output, choose the outbound QoS policy and set the default action to Permit Any. After ensuring all settings are correct, click the Apply button to enforce the new policies. Finally, click the red blinking Save icon to keep the configurations after a reboot. There you have it. Voice communications now have the priority they need for clear and uninterrupted calls. In the future, if you need different customizations, update them as needed. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.